Hey guys, this is RogueSims87. Today we're going to be taking a look at my short review of the brand new Hephaestus AMD65 gas flowback based on the GHK system. And this bad boy is basically released around the end of July, is right now July 24th. And the price of this retails for roughly around 4,300 Hong Kong dollars, which is roughly around 550 US dollars. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the price. If you wish to get one, you can get one from eHobby, Red Wolf Airsoft, WGC, UN Company, QRF, Bunny Workshop. There's a couple of other distributors out there, mostly Hong Kong distributors. I'm not aware of any outside of Hong Kong distributors getting a couple of these. Forgive me if I happen to miss out on some people. There's quite a big list. If you want to look it up, just go on Hephaestus' Facebook page or ask them yourself if you want to. But anyways, before we go on with the review, let's talk about what you get in the box. So the box is awfully pretty. It's actually so pretty that I decided to keep the box, which I normally don't do. And this is what the box looks like. It's very, very nice. Gives you a very nice premium feeling. And what you get is that the gun will be zip tied with foam and all that stuff, protecting the gun from sloshing around. It will also be wrapped in a plastic bag. That's to prevent scratching and anything like that. You will also, of course, get one magazine. The magazine is a AK-47 AKM magazine tucked inside the box, so it's very, very secure. It won't scratch up the gun. Don't worry about it. You'll also get an instruction booklet from Hephaestus with all your basic information about the AK, like how to load it, how to disable the safety, how to adjust the hop-up, and so on and so forth. Your basic GHK information. It's worth noting that if you decide to fire it when you take it out of the box, before you fire it, I strongly advise you to lube up the O-ring on the nozzle and lube up your internals. It's because when I first took this out of the box, the gun was extremely dry. It virtually had no oil. In fact, the bolt face had none of the coating was wearing off at all. So it was like really, really spot on brand new. Like they probably just assembled it and basically shipped it out. So yeah, make sure you lube it up. It's also worth noting that when I took it out of this, the whole entire body was actually lubed up with oil. And I think they lubed it up with oil to prevent it from rusting, or just to protect it from the elements, which is quite nice. You know, I do appreciate getting an AK oiled up. It's pretty cool. Just a neat little thing. Anyways, that's pretty much it. And now, let's go right to the externals of the gun. So before I start off the review and all that stuff, you probably want to know what's so special about this AK variant. So the AMD65 is actually a Hungarian rifle designed in Budapest back in the 1960s to the 1970s. And this went to production shortly after the AKM63, which was basically a Hungarian-made AKM. And to my understanding, the AMD65 was basically designed to be the short-barreled compact version of the AKM63. That had many interesting features, as you can see. That's the reason why it looks quite odd. It's also the reason why it appeals to many enthusiasts such as myself. So first off, let's talk about the barrel. So the barrel has been shortened by quite a bit. Supposedly the real steel version is apparently supposed to be 12.5 inches or something like that. For this situation, I measured it to be 13 inches with the muzzle brake. And this muzzle brake is actually pretty damn long. I was actually surprised about how long it is. If you take this off, the overall profile of the barrel is really, really short. And just to put things into perspective, this is an AK-105. If you actually look at it, they're pretty much more or less exactly the same length, just ever so slightly shorter. And also, this muzzle brake, by the way, the reason why it looks so odd is because this is the specific AMD65 muzzle brake that's supposed to be on the gun. And basically, this muzzle brake is made out of steel and has two detent slots on the top as well as on the bottom. And this is so that you can orient the muzzle brake in the correct position, because you're meant to see the ports on the side like this. You'll also note that this muzzle brake is sitting on 14mm counterclockwise threads. So that means most airsoft muzzle devices that you want to put on here will fit. Although I highly doubt that you will get rid of this muzzle brake, just because this is the proper look for the AMD65. Moving forward, we have the vertical foregrip that's actually angled away from the user. And this is because the AMD65, despite being such a short-barreled AK, in the real gun world, it still uses the 7.62x39 cartridge, which basically means that it's still meant to use the AK-47 or AKM magazine. In reality, in airsoft, it doesn't really matter whether or not you have an AKM magazine or this magazine. It really doesn't matter. The gun will lock onto both. It doesn't matter at all. but in the real gun version, it's meant to use this. And that's the reason why this foregrip is actually angled like that. Is so that you actually have a little bit more wiggle room to actually hook the magazine into the gun. You'll notice that you'll only have about maybe 2 inches of distance between the foregrip and the magazine, which is not much. You will touch it if you take off the magazine quickly. I just barely touched it, but that's pretty much... You're pretty much guaranteed to touch it, just because when you take the magazine off, you do sort of have to angle it. Just barely, though. It's not a big problem, to tell the truth. It's quite interesting thoughts the Hungarians had. And just another interesting thought as well, believe it or not, this foregrip is basically the reverse position of the pistol grip, right? Hard to see at first, right? But it's only because this foregrip sits on a slight angle on the handguard, so that's the reason why the angle looks a little bit off. But they're actually exactly the same thing, as you can tell. This also has the trigger guard cut, by the way. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. It took me a while to realize that. Someone actually had to point that out to me, and then I realized, oh, okay. So yeah. Now let's move on to the next defining feature of the AMD65, which is the handguard. Now, believe it or not, this whole entire handguard is actually made out of steel, which is a very nice touch, and has the exact same finishing as you would expect on the receiver. Very, very nice, very, very smooth. It's also completely flush with the receiver on all sides. But it's worth noting that there is a tiny bit of daylight that I can see on the bottom side, but there's no daylight that I can see on the sides. But maybe a little bit on the bottom, but pretty much by none. And the fitment is extremely tight. No wobble whatsoever. Same with the front here on the retainer. The retainer appears to have some skeletonization on it, and this is supposedly accurate with the real steel one. I'm not entirely sure what the real steel application of actually skeletonizing the retainer is, but apparently it's supposed to be like that. And there's your standard sling loop. If you wish to run a 2-point sling, you can. Over here on this side, and then to the forward part over here. I probably wouldn't run a sling on this just because I'm not too trusting of this. It doesn't swing very much, which is sort of a good thing. I don't want this wobbly at all, but I don't know. I just find it to be a little bit odd to have a sling location located here. But again, it's supposed to be like that, by the way. It's probably the proper look. I'm probably just going to leave it flush like that. Yeah. Anyways, moving on, we have the exposed gas tube, which is another defining feature of the AMD65. So normally, what you see on AKs is that normally you would see a handguard retainer welded onto the gas tube, and this is so that you can have a wood cover or a plastic cover covering the gas tube. If you like the modern style stuff, sometimes what we see is that we can see railed gas tube. This one is made by Troy. A railed gas tube onto the stuff. A famous company that makes railed gas tubes is Ultimac. If you're a big fan of AKs, you've probably heard of that. Or if you're a fan of modern AKs, you probably even own one yourself. The AMD65, on the other hand, just has absolutely nothing covering the gas tube, which I thought that was really strange. I'm not entirely sure why they do this in the real steel world. Is because in the real gun, there's a lot of hot gas coming over here and makes it very, very hot. So I'm not entirely sure what the Hungarians were thinking, but apparently that's the way they do things. But anyways, I digress. And before I move on, just to let you guys know, my gas tube is a little wobbly. As you can see, there's actually quite a fair bit of wobble. In fact, this is the only thing on the gun that makes any kind of a sound that wobbles. This is the only thing on the whole entire gun that wobbles at all. So I think the reason is because it lacks the leaf spring that applies tension on it to prevent it from moving. It looks like on this one that there is the handguard retainer is helping to keep this leaf spring in place. On this gas tube, I don't see any leaf spring whatsoever. I'm not entirely sure if that's a feature or if it's supposed to be like that or anything like that. But just to let you know that mine is wobbly. I'm not entirely sure if this is supposed to be like that, but I think this is the reason. I might be wrong about that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't recall the gas tube being supposed to be like that. So I thought that was interesting. Something that was worth noting. And moving on, we have the receiver. So the receiver is basically your normal kind of stuff. The only difference is that the markings is slightly different. Can you actually see it has the infinity marking for the full auto now, instead of this. Normally you'll see this. for the markings, right? That's what you normally see on an AK. In this case, we have infinity and 1, which I thought that was a little neat feature. This probably doesn't matter too much to the people who don't care, but you know, it sort of matters if you want a unique looking AK, right? That's the reason why you would buy something like this. On the other side, there's really not much to cover. There's no side mounts or anything like that. So if you want a scope, you won't have anything like that. And you will have a ribbed dust cover, I think that's what you call it, or a ridge dust cover, I forget what the proper term is. Just to let you know, each AMD65 has their own unique serial number. In my case, mine is number 61. I wish I had 087 because Rogues is from 087, but you know, maybe on their next custom, I don't know. Whoever has 87, I'll kill you. Anyways, just to let you know before I move on, this dust cover is extremely tight on the gun. It is actually so tight that I cannot take it off without having to hammer it. So I like to use a mallet to take off this dust cover. I might need to go off camera because it is pretty difficult to take off. The dust cover, every time when I seat it in, this area appears to be pinching the gun a little bit, which is sort of a good thing. I'd rather have this dust cover on very, very tight. It sits so tight that I need a hammer to install it and to take it off. So just to let you know that mine came like that. I actually sort of prefer it that way. And that's all your basic GHK internals with your spring. Which reminds me, this spring feels a little bit stiffer than I expected. I'm not entirely sure if Hephaestus changed out the spring, but it's a little bit stiffer than I recall. I don't recall the stock spring being this heavy. It's quite snappy. I don't know if you can tell on camera. I'm probably wrong about that, but I thought maybe that was something that they changed. Maybe. I'm not sure. And this is your bolt. And just to let you know, when you first get the bolt, look at how clean that is. That is bloody spotless. This is the cleanest AK bolt I've ever seen. There's absolutely no lube whatsoever. Make sure you lube it, by the way, because it's really, really dry. Right? Very, very dry. And the piston, by the way, you can still twist it off with your hands. So make sure you can't twist it. It's always difficult for me to twist this part off, but you can twist it off. So add a little bit of blue thread lock. If you wish to keep this, that is. I normally keep this just because it adds a little bit more recoil in the gun. Feels a little bit better. And to assemble, it's quite simple. Oh, you know what? While we're at here, let's take apart the gas tube just to show you. Because my gas tube was a little bit odd. So yeah, can you see that my gas tube has no leaf spring? I don't know if that's supposed to be a thing or not. That's what it looks like compared to a regular one. Oh shit, which way is the top? Oh yeah, right, that's the way. So there's no leaf spring. I'm tempted to take this off, but I don't really know how to take this off, to tell the truth. I might investigate that later on, but anyways, just to let you know that was how my gun came. It came like that. And another thing that's worth noting, by the way, is this iron sight. Can you actually notice that this iron sight had a slightly different texture compared to your normal AK sight? I'm not entirely sure if this is correct, but I feel like Hephaestus may have made this. Not 100% sure. The coating, the reason why I say this is because the coating and the appearance clearly looks different compared to all the other GHK AKs that I have. Right, it's clearly different, right? There's a big aesthetic difference. Not just in the white words, by the way, but in the overall coating of the rear iron sight. You can tell that there's quite a big aesthetic difference. Not entirely sure what the reason is for that, but I thought that was something that was worth noting. And another thing you guys may be curious about, by the way, is the stock. So the way the stock works is that this is a thin, wired out, hollow wire steel stock with a rubberized butt pad attached. It is made of steel, as you would normally expect. Now the mechanism here is actually very interesting. This is the only time where I've seen a stock like this, where the stock uses a button over here that's stiff to lock the stock, and the stock folds over on the right side like so. And the reason why it doesn't have a cheek rest is because it will interfere with the charging handle. So that's the reason why it folds over like that. It's actually quite an interesting idea. Not sure what the Hungarians were thinking, to tell the truth. I find that feature to be a little bit odd, but that's the way it is. And if you wish to free it, you have to push the button again, which is really tight, which is a good thing. And the stock has 0 wobble. You'll be glad to know that despite how thin the stock is, despite the mechanism, it is really solid. Solid as a rock. Very, very reliable. And this is the mechanism. Right there. The mechanism is actually quite special looking. I'm not entirely sure how this is installed. I wonder if they had to rivet it in. I think that's probably how they installed it. I'm not entirely sure. This is clearly something that Hephaestus made themselves. And it works very, very well, very solid. Phew, finally got this cover back on. That took quite a long time. It's very, very difficult because I don't want to scratch the gun. So just to let you know, I'm going to load up my magazine just to test the FPS for you guys. This is just same standard AKM magazine, so it's not too difficult. This is the loader that came with my other GHK AKs. When you get this, you do not have a loader. So if you don't have the proper loader, you're going to have to suffer just like everyone else and do it by hand. Or, if you're skilled enough, you can use a normal loader and install it like so, but you probably have to modify your lips. Some people modify their lips, some people don't. I don't modify my lips. I just use the magazine until it loosens up. So normally what I do is that normally I click one and push it in by hand first, and then this allows the rest to do it much easier. That's enough rounds for me to test the gun with. Okay, so right here I have my gun loaded with Airsoft Surgeon green gas and with 0.25 gram BBs. So I will have to adjust my chrono. I normally use 0.2 grams just because at home I like to test with 0.2 grams. Oh, you know what? I adjusted it with 0.25 already. So that's perfectly fine. Because I tested this FPS before I brought it to a game. So just to let you know, the sights when I was using it on my AMD65, the AMD65 for my sights was a little bit pointed to the right. So it was a little bit difficult for me to compensate. So if you wish to shoot this very, very accurately, you probably have to figure out which way your sight is pointing. Normally, most AKs I get, the sight is normally a little bit off. In fact, it took me a little bit while to confirm that because I needed to ask people if that was the case for them as well. I only have 4 GHKs in total, and they all have their sight a little bit, funny. So it was a little bit tricky to shoot with. I might get a railed gas tube in the future just so I can have a sight to shoot with. But then again, I don't intend on bringing this to too many games because it is a limited production item. Anyways, let's just do this on single. .368. Oh, sorry, I forgot to zoom in for you. You know what? Can you see that? Yes, you can. .355. .352. .344. And just to let you know, this is what the joule is. So it's around 1.3 joules. 1.368 joules. Sometimes it passes 1.4 if you bring it out outside in the summer. In my case, it was shooting 1.4 when I was out in W28. In Hong Kong, right now in Hong Kong, by the way, Hong Kong was really, really hot right now. So that's the reason why the joule was 1.4 when I was outside. Oh, see, just now it hit 1.4. It's 1.412 right now. Now it's dropping. Now it's around 330 FPS, 1.29 joules, so it's around 1.3 joules. Right now the power, I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to normally be like, but for now it seems to be roughly around 1.3 joules, which is a little bit hot, depending on where you play. In Hong Kong we have strict rules, so it's a little bit hot for where I play. Okay, so here we're just going to do a quick firing test for you guys just to show you guys what the cycling rate is like. The reason why I want to show you this is because I mentioned that the recoil spring feels a little bit stronger. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, but I find the cycling rate to be a tiny bit faster, but not by much. Like it's not not that much faster, but it feels a little bit faster to me. Again, I could be wrong about this. I could be wrong about the recoil spring being stronger, but it feels a little bit faster than I expected. Because when I was firing this outside in W28, it did perform really, really well. Albeit I couldn't really aim very well, just because my front sight's a little bit off. Not a big deal, to tell the truth. You can always compensate for that. So here's the cycling rate. I'm just using green gas, and the temperature in my room is 26 degrees right now. I don't have the aircon on just because, in Hong Kong, if we want to turn on our aircon to kill the environment, be my guest. Anyways, this is the test. So. I don't know if you can tell that on camera. It does feel a tiny bit faster, which I think that's pretty good. The cycling rate, if it's not better, it's the same performance as GHK, which is always very, very reliable, right? And here's full auto. I'm being very gentle with the switch because I don't want to scratch it. Right? So, that feels pretty good to me. If not the same as the normal GHK performance, I feel like it's a little bit better than a GHK performance, just a little bit though, not by much. The GHK performance of most AKs are already pretty good to begin with, but I thought maybe this is from Hephaestus, it might perform a little bit better, and it does seem to perform a little bit better. Again, I sort of understand that Hong Kong is a little bit hot right now, so it could be that illusion that makes me feel like it's a little bit better. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Overall, I find the gun to be a really, really nice build. A very, very nice special variant of the AMD65. Very, very difficult to get if you wish to get one for a gas blowback GHK system. I know the AMD65 hasn't been available in the AEG version for a long time from LCT. But having a gas blowback version, of course, is a lot nicer, a lot more authentic, right? So that's the reason why people pay money for this, is because, it is, quite a unique looking AK, right? The only bad point I would say is the gas tube, which I had a problem with, being a little bit rattly. It did give my position away a few times, but not a big deal, to tell the truth. When I was at W28, this gun was shooting pretty hot. It was 1.4, 1.5 joules. Very, very hot. So just be careful if you wish to bring this to a CQB game. You probably don't want to scratch the hell out of this, but I don't know. If you feel like taking this out to a game, be my guest. I took it out to one game, and that's probably about it, really. And when I took it out to that game, by the way, I didn't realize at the time that my internals was dry. So the O-rings on one of my nozzle was torn. I can very easily replace that, and that's because I didn't lube it up whatsoever. Remember to lube it. Very, very important. The second you take it out of the box, just lube it once. So, anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. I also have a Facebook page that you can follow me on, in which I will leave a link in the description box below. Peace, guys. Happy shooting, and thanks for watching.